Hi everyone, my name's Grant Smith. I'm the Communications Manager at Connecting App and TechSoup New Zealand, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's session is on data reporting, business intelligence, and outcomes to enhance services. And we'll be exploring how organizations can leverage their data and cost-effective business intelligence tools to get started on their business intelligence journey. Our presenters today are Nathan Missoud from our community, Marcus Harvey from InfoExchange, and Julia Clinch from InfoExchange. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. If you have any technical issues, please flag those with me on the questions panel that you can see. And noting that most technical issues will be to do with bandwidth or to do with your microphone or audio. And you can fix most things by closing down any programs or any software that you're not using and exiting and re-entering the platform. Please also note that today's session will be recorded and that you will receive a copy of the recording and the presentation after the session. Other than that, not much for me to say. I'd love to hand you over to Marcus.
Thanks so much, Grant, and it's really exciting to be here, particularly to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is helping organisations understand what services they provide, the evidence and the activities that can be counted so that you can create a story and help yourself understand the outcomes you achieve. We're going to cover a whole range of different things today. Particularly, Nathan's going to talk a little bit about the work he's been doing and give you his tips and tricks and how you can go through the journey. Julia's also going to talk through some really simple, low cost and free tools and show you how easy it is to get started. But first of all, what I'd like to do is just begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. And their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. I'm joining you from Boonwurrung country in the Kulin Nation, and know that you'll be joining from all over Australia and potentially even New Zealand, and we're thrilled to have you here from whatever land and nation you're joining from. I would like, first of all, to just say a big thank you to Minister Pulford, who has been kind enough with the Victorian government to support the Digital Innovation Festival and this webinar series here today. Let me just show you a short video just to give you a quick intro and a bit more background.
Hi, and welcome to the Digital Innovation Festival. DIF's an exciting Victorian government initiative that brings together people to connect, collaborate and learn about digital tech and innovation. It runs for 2 weeks. Innovation drives growth across every part of our economy and makes Victoria one of the greatest places in the world to live, work and do business. Our local innovators are responsible for some of the world's major advances in technology, medicine, manufacturing and science, things that are now part of our everyday, at home, at work, at school, and everywhere in between. Our position as an innovation leader is firmly established, and the Andrews Labor government is committed to working with people just like you, Victorian businesses, entrepreneurs, individuals and communities to drive economic growth and create new and exciting opportunities for Victoria. I hope you enjoyed today's event, and be sure to check out the other events taking place over the course of the Digital Innovation Festival. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do some of these events in person, but for now, stay safe and stay well and enjoy the online DIF that is the 2021 festival. Take care.
Always great to have a government that's so supportive of innovation and non-profits all across Australia. I would like to talk to you briefly about the Digital Innovation Hub because it really was during COVID that it became clear the need for a whole range of resources to help non-profits work effectively Just excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. It really became clear that there was a lot of non-profits across the country that were really struggling with what COVID had brought us. The challenge really was helping organisations to work effectively from home during this challenging period. And to support those organisations, what we did was we developed the Digital Innovation Hub with 6 key resources. First being an assessment of readiness so that non-profits can understand their strengths and weaknesses in each of their different technology areas. We've got a range of case studies to help organisations learn from each other around how they can use technology effectively. We've got more than 50 digital guides to walk through the process of how do you build your technology expertise. We've got a bunch of training resources so that your staff and your technology team and your IT managers can all build their skills and use technology effectively. Then we've got the ability to book expert advice, both with the Digital Hub team and also our wonderful team of volunteers who are keen to help non-profits use technology effectively, as well as a bunch of technology discounts for non-profits, because we know that every dollar you spend on technology is another dollar you're not spending on service delivery. And these are some of those discounts, particularly in the reporting and business intelligence space, will be covered later on today. To simplify the technology jungle for everyone, what we've done is identified 5 domains that allow non-profits to focus on where they want to make the biggest difference. There's tech foundations to get your core operational and enable people to work from home, information systems to support your service delivery, digital marketing to build your supporter and funder base, IT management to make the most of every dollar, and cybersecurity to keep all your information safe. What I'd like to do now, given that I've given you a bit of an overview of the hub and really encourage you to have a look at that, digitaltransformation.org.au, is hand over to Nathan, who's going to tell more about the digital innovation, he's going to tell you a little bit more about the work that our community has been doing in terms of helping organisations to make the most out of their data. Nathan.
Hi everyone. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. So yeah, my name's Nathan. I'm a data scientist at our community. I'm speaking to you not far from where Marcus was. I'm on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land. So I pay my respects as well to the elders here and the traditional owners and custodians of the lands from wherever you're tuning in from. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with our community, we're a for-purpose organisation that's been serving the not-for-profit sector for over 2 decades, and we offer all sorts of resources and tools from grant databases to governance training, fee-free donation platform, that kind of thing. I'm excited to be here today and really thanking FoxChange for inviting me. With the launch of their Digital Transformation Hub, there's really some clear connections and overlaps with the work that we've been doing to uplift data science capability. So having Marcus just given us a broad understanding of all the components of the technology jungle, as he put it, so IT management, information systems, cybersecurity, that kind of thing. What I'm going to be doing over the next 20 minutes is delving a little bit deeper into data analysis and the data science slice of that. And that's all the sort of stuff that ties into data projects that might be about reporting, business intelligence, and outcomes. So my plan is to start by taking you through a little bit of history. I like starting with a little bit of history to interest you and to position how a modern data science team operates. And then I'll step us through a framework that's based on sources and uses of data in not-for-profit organizations. And this will help you evaluate your organizational readiness with respect to data projects. And I don't mean it in a sort of checkbox way. really we're going to be presenting a framework that's designed for you to start conversations and really think about what you're currently doing and where you want to move towards. And then I'll just finish with a slide that will explain some of the specific resources that we offer and hand it back to Julia, who will then take us through some software tools that you might like to use in data projects. Okay, and also I should mention that throughout, while we can't answer questions live, I think there's a question capability with this webinar platform, so you can insert a question there, and then we'll be leaving time at the end of this webinar to answer those questions. So if at any point there's something you want clarification on, or something that sparks a certain question, more abstract question, higher level question that you'd like us to address, yeah, please do put those questions there and we'll be more than happy to address those. Okay, first of all, let's start by demystifying data science a little bit and take you back a little bit further than you might have expected. So I want to talk briefly about Florence Nightingale. So she was considered the founder of modern nursing, but she was also a really passionate statistician, and she pioneered the use of applied statistics to develop policy and enact reform. Now this chart that I'm showing you here, it's a polar graph, it's really cool. She was using it here, she was stationed with the British Army in India, and she was using these kind of graphs to demonstrate that some of the things they were facing, the conditions they were facing, like bad drainage and contaminated water, were causing the high death rate in the army. And so she concluded that the health of the army and the health of the people of India had to go hand in hand, and really off the back of this kind of analysis, campaigned to improve sanitary conditions for the country as a whole. And so this was published in 1858. So arguably she was not just the first nurse, but you know, the first data scientist. She didn't use machine learning or artificial intelligence, but she was using data to guide decision making, right? She was very goal focused, and I think that's kind of the main thing to keep in mind. No matter how sophisticated data science gets or how simple it is, what's shared in this kind of umbrella term is the use of data to guide decisions. So what we have is kind of obviously things have changed since Nightingale's time. The tools have changed, and we're facing now what I think of as a problem of abundance. So, you know, with the increase in interest in using these tools for analysis and science, we've got this increasing amount of storage, better processing capability, more data collection. You know, that's kind of something that people trot out all the time now. There's more and more data. And essentially what we have with data science is the marriage of applied statistics with that long history with the younger discipline of computer science. And so while the names might evolve, we still have this same problem, which is a scarcity of resources. So really the question is, how do we make data useful, right? We have access to all of this stuff. What do we do with it? What kind of skills are required in order to do that? So if you were to Google data science or what's involved in being a data scientist, you can find any number of blog posts detailing and debating what's involved. And it was kind of summed up in 2012 by the Harvard Business Review, who calls it, you know, the sexiest job of the 21st century, but also I would argue the vaguest, right? They combined it by saying it's the data hacker, analyst, communicator, all these things. And the result was that it's extremely powerful, but also really rare. It's interesting to find that they've actually shifted their focus, and a more recent article, and this is kind of where I'm landing with this segment, is what's actually involved in data science teams. They're shifting their emphasis from this unicorn person who has all the skills in one to thinking about the different talents that are involved across a whole team, and actually talk about explicitly dismantling the unicorn thinking that they had introduced themselves just at the start of the decade. So there's a real upshot to this kind of shift in thinking for not-for-profits, right? The key message here is that you don't have to go and try to find a unicorn. You can identify talents that are already within your organization that you might already possess yourself, or other people in your team might possess. You can make decisions about where to upskill people, whether to make a task contract driven. And at the end of the day, it means that you can do data projects that are quite sophisticated in a really cost-effective manner. So these are the kind of core talents that you might like to think about it as involved in data projects. So there's, there's project management, of course, which is bridging cultural gaps between the different talents and having everyone speak the same language. Data wrangling, which is what people traditionally think of when they think of data science. So finding and cleaning and structuring data, creating algorithms and other statistical engines. There's data analysis, so setting hypotheses and testing them, finding meaning in data. And then the next three are ones that are kind of underlooked. So subject expertise. So the idea is that you want to have people that really have a strong understanding of the business and its strategy embedded in the team. And design and storytelling. So design and storytelling, it's not just about visual communication, it's about actually distilling ideas and connecting dots for people. For example, if you're working with fundraising, you want to be connecting dots for potential grant assessors or your potential donors and supporters. So with that in mind, just at the end of the day, I just want to get across the idea that you've probably heard the term data science a lot, but it's not really all that different from what's been used in the past. It's just using data to support decision making, and it happens that there's a lot more focus these days on data and a lot more software to go through it. So there was this initial flurry of organizations like 10 or 15 years ago to fire up the data science teams, and now that the dust is settling, we're kind of finding that the best data science is really goal-focused, a team effort. It's just that the nature of the tools has changed. So it's become a huge thing in the corporate sector, and this means stiff competition for qualified data scientists, but there are opportunities for not-for-profits due to a whole range of other facets, like the fact that there's this culture of what's called open source. So a lot of the software and tools that are produced, even within corporate labs, are shared for free for anybody to access and to reuse code. And also we've been working out the kinks in terms of team and project management, as we saw with the turnaround of advice with the Harvard Business Review. So with all that in mind, I just like to start with kind of positioning us with what data science is. And with that in mind, we can now move to thinking about the actual specifics of data within not-for-profit organizations and how you might actually start getting your head around some data projects that you'd like to achieve yourself. So what I'll do now is take us through the sources and uses of data in not-for-profits. So we kind of came away. We've been talking to thousands of not-for-profits. So there are 600,000 community groups across Australia, and we've had a contact with a lot of them at our community. And we kind of thought, okay, what are the main 6 buckets if we wanted to put them into those kind of categories for where data comes from? And this is just a way of aiding your brainstorming. So if you're given the question, where's data coming from in your organization, having these kind of categories to launch onto can be a good starting point. So one is obviously fundraising. This is a core consideration in the not-for-profit world. It covers everything from donations and crowdfunding, as well as grant applications, even kind of website usage and social media engagement might come on board with this, because that can be really important for determining who's actually paying attention and potentially willing to donate. Then you might want to think of people as a second source of data. So this is obviously people within the organization, so staff and volunteers, but also the external people, so members of your organization or donors or funders. Next up, operations data. So if organization were a car, its operations data would be its a service logbook. So we're talking about data related to contracts, income, expenditure, assets, property, security, privacy, risk, everything, right? That's operations kind of data. Then we've got needs data. So this one's a bit different. So this is kind of asking the question, why does your organization exist? So this category encompasses contextual data related to your organization's reason for being. So it could be include public data sets or demographics, for example, from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And this would be to find the demographics that are relevant to your targeted groups. and give some indication of the need for the particular services that you offer. It might include as well market analysis about change makers that are doing similar work. So that's needs. Programs, of course, this pertains to what you're actually doing and how you're doing it. So the services you provide, the interactions with the people you serve, your events, the feedback you get from those events, that's all your programs data. And then lastly, impact data. So this is data that you've gathered to try to measure and track outcomes and program impact. And of course, some of you might only be at the beginning of that journey, but it includes a whole range of things like indicators, surveys, case studies, any sort of evidence that shows changes in knowledge, attitudes, or behavior that might be as a result of your programs. So those are the kind of 6 sources I like to think about when I start conversations with not-for-profits about what the data they're collecting and what data they might like to collect. And you might also want to think about it in 2 different ways. So they serve 2 different purposes. So the first 3, fundraising, people, and operations, are those that have the opportunity to make your organization more efficient, right? Be able to achieve more fundraising with the same amount of dollars, or organize your people more effectively. Whereas the last 3 make your programs more effective, right? So actually increase the impact that you have on your the people that actually benefit from your services. So now that we've talked about the kind of typical sources of data in not-for-profit organizations, we can think about the uses of the data. And I use the pyramid metaphor here because we kind of modeled the data science hierarchy of uses of data on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which some of you might be familiar with. So it's the idea that as humans, in Western societies anyway, at the base, it's kind of the needs are things like shelter and food and that kind of thing, up to self-actualization at the very top. And actually, the reason I say Western, if anyone's interested in this, I can share the link later, but I just recently read this thing about how Maslow was influenced by indigenous thinking, the Blackfoot Society in North America. And if someone was to do a kind of a pyramid for some indigenous societies, it kind of flips it on its head, where self-actualization is actually the foundation, and then it moves up to community and cultural permanency at the top. But sidebar, it's just something that's been on my mind, so I might have to change this pyramid later on. But anyway, for our purposes, that's just a loose connection. So let me think about where we might start with data and where we move to. So the first thing is collecting and storing data. So this is the base of the pyramid. We can think about it in really architectural terms. You need to get those foundation blocks right. So this is referring to capturing all the relevant data and being able to put it together in an applicable sort of processing environment. So, what information is the organization gathering? Where is it being stored? That kind of thing. It could be electronic, it could be hard copy. Some people might have really smooth information systems running. Other people might be dealing with all sorts of emails and paper copies and scans that are just uploaded into Dropbox. So there's a lot of decisions to get right at this base level, because that'll have flow-on effects through the rest of the process. Next, the next kind of use of data is processing and exploring it. So what's the data look like? What's it telling you? Are membership retention rates increasing or decreasing? Does your annual fundraiser bring in more money each year or less? All that kind of thing. So do you have a hunch about something but no data to back it up? That's where you might need to go back a level and say, okay, are we collecting the right data? So that's the next thing. And then the next thing is reporting and visualizing. So at this level, you're really starting to paint pictures with your data, reports and visualizations that communicate what the data is telling you. And in some situations, these reports might even feed into a real-time dashboard rather than a point-in-time document. So it's worth don't disregard the basic tools that are accessible to you now in order to achieve these steps. So the charts tool in Microsoft Excel, for example, can help even fledgling users convert data into useful charts. So keep that in mind. Although Julie is going to be talking later about Tableau and Power BI, and these are some increasingly popular and increasingly user-friendly options to really dive deep into your data for these particular 2 levels. And then lastly, learn and optimize. So this is where data science really takes off. This is where well-collected and sensibly processed data can, do all sorts of almost magic things, right? You can feed statistical models to make predictions about, make predictions and test theories. Of course, having lots of data isn't a panacea. You need to consider the quality of your data as well. So yeah, you can do all sorts of things at the top here, things like automation and optimizing processes. But the important thing is that it's this pyramid, right? Not everything has to be perfect from the start, but you can't just jump to the top. You need to work your way through it. And that's kind of what a lot of my advice and resources and consultations with people is geared around, is getting people along this pathway so they can get towards the top of the pyramid. I'll give you, just to make it a little bit more concrete, all the things I just spoke about. Just want to wrap up with this slide that kind of gives an example of the different things at each step. So to give you some idea of the spectrum of possibilities. So at the base level, yeah, there's where are you storing things, the decisions you're making here. So it could be some sort of customer relationship management platform. A lot of people use Salesforce. They have a not-for-profit sort of arm. But as I mentioned, you could be storing things in all sorts of different places. So you need to get that kind of humming. And actually, this is where I think a lot of the resources in the Info Exchange Digital Transformation Hub is really excellent for getting your head around these information systems and the decisions that you've got to be making at this foundational level. Further up, there's all sorts of small data projects. So I'm giving you some examples now of data projects you might do. So for example, if you're trying to improve fundraising here, one thing to process and explore that data would be to just do a simple word cloud. You can do that really easily with no sort of special knowledge. That website I put there will do it for you, right? So if you've got a survey of your supporters, you might be asking them, what motivates them to give. So that could help you to understand current supporters. Or if you fed it different data, like reports from your volunteers, it might help you to find stories in the data that are worth telling. So it's worth thinking about those really basic processing and exploring steps that you can do to improve things at your organization. Next, reporting and visualizing, one thing you can do. So you might want to, so once you've done all those charts and use Tableau or Power BI to visualize things, remember data science is about making it useful. So once we've got these pretty charts and so on, what are we actually trying to do with them? So one thing you can do, I put a little example there of something we've worked on before with the Circle, which is a LGBTIQ organization. And what we did was look into the actual funding that was being given to these this area, and use it to highlight the need for more funding. And we put it together, this interactive scroll, to really attract donors and also to bolster their grant applications. So that's one example of kind of a really purposeful project based on what was pretty simple data, but data that had to be collated from different sources. So finding out the current status of funding through the sector and combining that with their individual organizations' data. And then lastly at the top, this is the real data science techniques where you could use predictive analytics to sort of target your appeals more precisely. And you could start doing some integrations with your CRM system and automate things like sending emails based on certain triggers, certain things that people mention, or certain statuses of their relationship with you. So there's a kind of a real spectrum of possibilities. So the challenge is knowing where to start. And so that's why I like to combine the two things I just spoke about to help you evaluate your data readiness. So you put them together and you get this sort of data capability framework. And this gives you a really clear idea about what's happening to data in your organization and where you might like to end up. So the idea with this framework is we want people to be able to say, okay, we're doing this in this cell, and we want to move from here to there, right? And then you might talk to me or someone from Info Exchange and say, okay, what are the resources that you have available to assist with that kind of progression. So you can look at the framework through a bunch of different lenses. One might be to start by gathering information about what your organization's already doing. So this is not just a way of assessing current data maturity, but setting goals. So you might go to your colleagues and you really use this as a conversational starter and say, okay, what are we doing with our fundraising data, right? We're storing it here, where are we storing it? What do we want to be able to do with it? That kind of thing. So you pick a column and a row and use that to start a conversation with people. So yeah, you could also look at it through a systems lens. So what are the actual systems that you have in place to manage things? Who has access to these things? What skills might be required to work on data projects in each area? So the ease or difficulty of examining these systems will really vary depending on the size and type of your organization. I'm not sure who's in this virtual room with me. It's a bit weird just talking to my screen. Some of you might be from really big organizations. Other people might be in a 3-person unit or even some sort of solo operation. I don't know. So really, this is quite general, and it's a way to start thinking about things and a kind of something as well you can bring to the table with when you can go to get a consultation with me or with someone at the expert bar from the Digital Transformation Hub. So not having this kind of thing at the start will really help. Oh, and then lastly, you could also use this framework to map out the questions that you'd like to answer, and what data and what data capabilities you'll need to do so. So if you ask the question like, why do people stop donating to our cause? Clearly that's going to involve some sort of fundraising data, but it's quite a sophisticated question. You're trying to learn something about people. So that's really top level. And so in order to get there, you might think, oh, okay, if we're currently only doing this with our fundraising data, we might need to try something in between first. You might have simpler questions like how many volunteers do we have? And then other questions like how have we impacted the community? So more and more questions will arise as you go through the process. And asking the right questions to your data is a skill in itself, and something that we've actually developed a whole tutorial around because it's kind of so important, even though it seems so basic. So actually on that note, I'll just wrap up my little section before handing over to Julia and leaving us with some time for questions. I'll just mention the resources that our community offers. And I think there'll be a link as well later on, but basically, we've got a hard copy resource of the framework I discussed today. And then importantly, something that I didn't mention today, but we've already kind of done the first couple of steps, is a simple 15-step guide to starting your first data project. So that's really steps you through the whole process from we call it from go to woe. So that includes like developing a project brief, and we've got a template project briefs and template job descriptions if you need to hire someone. Steps you through all the steps involved in that. So that can be something that you might be interested in if you've got some ideas and you want to do something ambitious. Also, we've got the consultations, obviously, and we've got those introductory data science tutorials and all sorts of events that we try to connect the data for good community with not-for-profit organizations and do sort of volunteer matching and all that kind of thing. So if you're interested in any of that, you can just go on the website. If you've got more specific questions, email us through that link or maybe ask them in the chat. So that's all for me. I kind of put a lot at you. Hopefully some of that was useful and interesting to you. And now to Julia. Let's change presenter.
Thank you so much, Nathan. You demystified that so well. And I just want to say that I would be very interested in the Maslows article in the Indigenous sort of perspective. That sounds really cool. I know that's not really on topic here, but I just want to highlight as well, we will be sharing all the links that Nathan kindly talked us through, that data framework or Go2O, in the slide deck. So you'll find it in sort of 4 categories: guides, tools, expertise. So that's our 2 consultants, free consulting in the expert bar and at our community as well. Just before I begin, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners where I'm speaking from, which is the Wurundjeri country. And yes, as mentioned, I'm Jules. I'm a senior consultant at Info Exchange, and I'm going to talk to you today about the two tools that we really see non-for-profits utilizing to analyze and model and visualize their data to get real good, juicy insights. I want to highlight, Nathan did talk about the nature of the tools and how much they've changed exponentially. So you'll see here the likes of you and I'm not a developer, can use these tools. They're really user-friendly, drag and drop sort of functionality, slice and dicing. It's really cool. You kind of feel like a magician, but I'll take you through that. So I'm taking you through Power BI today. First off, just speaking about the tool set, well, Power BI, again, like I said, really user-friendly. On the right there, what it does is creates reports and dashboards. I want to highlight you can create a dashboard for, sorry, excuse me, just making sure you guys, everyone can hear me. So on the right, yeah, creating reports. You can actually create reports for individual teams. If you're a big organization, again, like Nathan said, not sure who's on this virtual conference, just speaking to myself, but you can create it for your marketing team and get insights for maybe the websites, clicks and targets and outcomes that you want within that team. Thank you so much, Marcus. And again, this report and dashboard, the board is the visualizations. You can go from your simple pie charts to histograms, waterfalls. I'll mention some of those in the demo, or show you some of those in the demo. Great thing about Power BI is if you are familiar with Excel, you'll pick up the basics of Power BI like that. And you'll see how I use Excel as well. So today I'm going to use a CSV file to input that into the tool. The dashboards, I just, want to highlight dashboards are so important, again, just to track against service targets, understanding different program areas, how your team leads are tracking towards their outcomes as well. Another amazing thing is the one version of truth. So I've experienced this myself, going into an organization where I'm analyzing data from an Excel sheet. I might analyze it and then send it to Nathan via email. He analyzes it and then it gets lost in which version was the updated. Maybe some columns were deleted. Again, the data preparation is such a big step. Luckily, Nathan's got those tools there for you to work up to using or visualizing your data. But again, it's just this tool allows you to actually schedule refreshes of your data sources. So that's not just your Excel, that's data sources from like Salesforce, your CRMs, from your SQL databases, from your MailChimp data sources. Highlighting that on the left there, Power BI supports so many data sources. So you are safe in saying that you can input pretty much anything you've got, your fundraising data, your people, etc. So the great thing about Power BI, if you've got your Microsoft 365 suite, it's at no extra cost. So it's free, it started straight away. If you have some additional functionality, which we don't always see, you will be paying $4.10 per user per month. And another cool thing about Power BI is I actually can access visualization. So the CEO can access visualizations on the go, on his phone, and go, hang on, that target, that outcome, that KPI, whatever it is, isn't what we reported. Maybe I'll call, the director and just see what's happening there. So it's real time as well. and you can click and, like again, I said slice and dice, which I'll show you too. So it's really, really cool functionality. And the second tool here, Tableau. So Tableau, very, very similar, creating dashboards and reports as well. It supports many data sources. Again, a drag and drop interface, no programming experience needed. So you'll feel like again, like I said, you'll feel like a magician doing this. Tableau does have a 14-day free trial for non-for-profits. And with the Tableau pricing, so for non-for-profits, you get 2 years subscription, you get the Tableau desktop and the Tableau Prep Builder. This is for one user, but she or they can log in twice, so 2 devices at a time. And then after the 2 years, the product will cease to function. So that one's at $101, excluding GST. So that's in Australian dollars. And let's get to the fun stuff. So I'm really excited to be showing you this demo. And I really want to, make sure we leave time for questions. So while I'm doing this, please type away. We want to be able to help support you today and really get you analyzing your data. So I'm going to open up the Power BI desktop. So again, like I mentioned, you can use this on your mobile or the web. They do have very similar interfaces. So first, I'm just going to input data and show you how I report and visualize that. And then I've got something that I've prepared later, like a chef, and show you sort of a final, more sophisticated, like Nathan mentioned, dashboard. But again, these are just tools, technology tools. They don't change the end goal. So again, it's really important to understand what insights you're getting from your data. So hopefully you can see my screen, and I am about to import. So this is the GUI. This is what it looks like when you open it up. I just cleared the update of the yellow notification. And again, like I mentioned, I am going to upload a demographic data sets from CS in a CSV file. And you can choose from all these. There's just, like I mentioned, just so many different data sources support with Power BI. So again, I'm just opening, found my data set there. Let's click that and let's wait for it to import. Looks like it's, so in this step here, if you haven't cleaned your data, if you see maybe some columns or rows, you're like, hang on, that shouldn't be in there, then you can click the Transform Data button here, which will take you to, I'll demonstrate quickly. I've cleaned my data set already, so this is a step that I do not have to do. But for example, just like an Excel sheet, you've got your columns and your rows. So like I said, we are looking at demographic data. You've got your gender, you have the age range, and that's what we're going to sort of look into is this survey data, this demographic survey data. We want to know what age range participated, and let's look at where they're from as well, what country they're from, because I can see right here we've got country of birth. But I just wanted to say that, yeah, you can come to the screen, you can click on a row. If you didn't want that, you can remove. Yeah, do a lot of slicing and dicing in here as well, like you would in your Excel or your data source. So I'm going to close and apply. I should say this is an additional window that's popped up. It's called the query window. I like to close it all down, so I just have the one GUI, which is this here. Now it's just creating connections in the model. So you'll see on the side here, we've got the 3 images. This here, which is what we're on now, is the report. So this is where I'm going to tie in over here, I think you hopefully can see my mouse, the visualizations, so your pie charts, your histograms. And over here, when I click on my data set, I get all the attributes. So attributes equaling, your columns. So whereas the country of birth is right there. And I'll take you through that in a moment. I just wanted to show you in the left here, it's another view where you can see your data again. And you can click down on the fields as well, have the attributes there. And then we've got the modeling as well. So when I take you to the what I prepared earlier dashboard, that's going to have 3 different data sources in it. So this is the model and the attributes and how they connect with other data sources, because you have to align for it to be able to talk and make sense. And I'll show you that in a moment's time. So let's create a report. Demographic data. Again, I want to see where or what age range participated. So clicking here, it's just one click on the person ID. That's going to come up over here. Doesn't really make any sense at the moment, but let's check out what the age range of the people that participated. And here we go. So we've got a column graph. This is just by default, that as soon as you enter in some attributes, it kind of defaults the main visualization used there, but I can change it up. So let's say Nathan really loves pie charts. Let's click on that and voila, we've already got a different view. Just looking at it, it's a little bit messy. There's not as many labels. So what we can do is edit these labels here into the painting tool. So they format, looks like a paint and brush. The labels are on. So that's the legend here, ensuring that we have all the age range and what colors they meet to the percentage. We can, I guess the labels are run. That must be default, but you can add and take with that. You can change colors, make it to your organizational branding. There's many different sort of filtering and formatting you can do here, which is so great. And like I said, I really want to also know where these people are surveying from. So I can, change this and untick age range, but I kind of want to make a new visualization. Let me just unclick that. So let's go, and I've clicked on the blank to really see how nothing is selected anymore. We're going to create a new model. So again, clicking on the person ID and then country of birth. And, that doesn't really make any sense being in a column chart. So let's find the map. And voila, maybe we should, I feel like this should be a bit bigger, make this a little bit smaller. And this is just showing you how easy it is to really play with. So you can zoom in and hover, and it will come up with how many people surveyed from Australia. So we have 53 there. And again, it just shows you that color. You can slice and dice a bit more. So how we slice and dice? We actually need to create a slice and dice format. So visualization. So we've actually got that in here. It's called Slicer. It looks like a table and then a filter. So we click that, or you can click it in and then select your field. So I'm just showing you 2 ways you can do this. You can select the visualization first or the fields first. For me, I like selecting the fields because then I'm like, okay, I know what I'm visualizing, and then I'll alter the visualizations. Hope it made sense. So I want to find out, let's say, people that identify as Aboriginal, and both of my visualizations will be filtered down. How cool is that? I also just want to show you, because sometimes I'm a bit particular where I've got a blank data set in there that's giving me no information. I'm like, oh, like this one right here. We can actually filter that and edit. And apologies, it is just taking its time this morning, which is fine. See, I'm trying to find the 3 dots, and this time they're at the bottom. So clicking on that, more filters here. Let's click on the identify as filter. So that's filters on this visualization. And I'm going to select all, but remove the blank, although it does have numbers. So it does have important data in there, but it's not giving me any insights, so I am going to leave that alone. So again, it's just tidying up my page a little bit, just showing you how easy and awesome it is. So yeah, again, please ask your questions away, keep going. We want to, if you've got anything you want to know about this functionality, please put in the chat. And then I'll just quickly just sum up the dashboard that, again, I said we did earlier. Just for now, I'm going to turn off my video. I'm getting a little bit of delay on my side, so hopefully this might help, and hopefully you're not getting that. So the dashboard, hopefully you can still see my screen too. Hopefully, because I'm seeing, okay, let's go with yes. Yeah, oh good, thank you, Marcus. So here is the dashboard, and you can see it's just, there's a lot of filters. We can go down with the demographics. It's using the same data set. Well, before I get into all these filters, I'm going to click on that model visualization here, and how I was talking about before, how we're connecting up the data sources. So again, one can be Excel, one can be SQL, one can be CRM like Salesforce data, SharePoint data, whatever it is, you can connect them up, which is, I just find this so insightful. And going back into the data, so I'll show you here, this is the data set in their ranges, and let's show you the demographics. Again, we can filter it in by, let's say I want to know how many people Hobart in Australia that participated, and we can even see by the males and females. So we have a total of 32 clients in Hobart, and I have to not click that, Hobart. There we go. In Australia, yep, clicked that. And it's just filtering down for us. Apologies, I feel like I'm getting delay right now. Yeah, so filtering through, really getting to the bits and bobs of where people are, and understanding how we can serve our clients. And with the demographics here, we had the outcome, our data source that, you know, gets feedback from them of how we're serving our clients. So we can look at where they're coming from, their ethnicity and race status, main reasons for ending support periods. That was another data set that came through. So we can see here, you know, maybe the client was referred to another agency, and we can see what agency, what industry that comes into play. We can select by, you know, there probably won't be much in 0 to 2 years, or there's a few there. 27 was referred to another agency within the, I think I've got female clicked as well. There we go. So that boosted up when I unfiltered my female, the gender. So again, yeah, just a lot of great ways of slicing and dicing. And it looks like we've only a couple more minutes left. So let's go straight into questions because we want to make sure that we're answering as much as possible. So thank you. And
Fantastic, thanks, Julia. A couple of questions. Paul has asked, how would you describe the relative merits of Power BI versus MS Dynamics 365?
The Dynamics, okay. So Dynamics, to me, I only know it more as a CRM, whereas the Power BI is a very, again, I'm probably not the best to answer this. Marcus, you've used Dynamics. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've used Dynamics before.
Yeah, look, Dynamics is very much a CRM, and you can use it for other things as well. So in Nathan's terminology, we think of Dynamics as an information store, and that you can then analyze the data, and very much it also supports your ability to transform your business processes and automate a lot of those elements. So it's more about storing the information and making sure it's useful. And while like all applications or systems, there are some reports within Dynamics, and it integrates quite nicely to Power BI. Power BI is a lot stronger in terms of pulling together data from multiple sources for creating those visualizations, and also particularly for analyzing data over time and compared to external data sources. We see other organizations, for instance, bring in ABS data or other demographic data that shows demand, and that's really where Power BI comes into its own.
Fantastic. Ruth has asked, how do you put all of this into a report and download it?
So there's two ways. You go, Julia.
Yeah, there is two ways. You can, it's an actual Power BI file, which you can share, but there's also the web way, which I haven't done. So Marcus, if you know that process a bit better.
I was just going to add in that Power BI is very much designed to be consumed in an online world. So to get real-time ability to slice and dice information and to compare things, that's not something that is easy to do within Power BI in an offline world. If you want offline, what we find nonprofits doing is, if it's a simple report, they export an email in PDF, or a more sophisticated report, you can do exactly the same within an Excel format, so that, and then share it via SharePoint, etc., that can be synced offline, so that people can then interrogate that data. Nathan, any other advice on that one? Beautiful.
Okay, Carolina has asked, how do we get users to trust new tools like Power BI, especially staff who may be used to using their own version of spreadsheets?
Nathan, do you want to have first crack at that one?
You're muted, Nathan. There you go.
Yeah, I think you can hear me now.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I think that with any of these tools, you need to have a strong use case. Like, what are the advantages of using them over the existing tools, like Excel or whatever basic things that staff are used to, so you want to have those conversations. That's why I kind of put forward the framework as a sort of really geared around having conversations with people, including end users. And so one thing that's important with end users as well is making sure that it's not going to make things more difficult for them beyond the initial sort of upskilling to get used to these tools. You want to make sure that it's not adding additional burden in terms of data input as well. So yeah, without knowing the specific tools that your current staff use, it's hard to give specific advice. But that would be my initial thinking, is think about the labour involved at the data input stage, and think about really setting up rationale for the new tools. Marcus, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest issue we have when we're working with organisations in the trust is lack of trust in what the source data is. And then everyone starts to do their little edits to the data to get the data set that they trust. And what we find is that then creates multiple versions of the truth, and organisations then really struggle to get a set of numbers that they all agree on. So the advantage of these tools are that it can be done once to a common process, and if there is a problem with the data, it gets fixed once and shared with everyone. Usually we find that getting that level of trust takes time, particularly when the data is dirty. So making sure that there is time in any data project to work through those issues and get to a common understanding of what the truth is a really important aspect.
Fantastic. And I guess I could suggest you might get them to watch the recording of this session with you, and they can see what it looks like. That might help. Look, team, that's the last of the questions. So we've just gone past the half hour, so I think we'll wrap up. I'd just like to thank Marcus, Nathan, and Julia for presenting today. That was really, really interesting, really good. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember you will receive a copy of the presentation and the recording soon. Carolina says thank you, and on that note, I think I'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.